he is a deputy editor of RARE and a member of USA Today, USA Today's board of contributors. And he is the author of the book This Time We Win, Revisiting the Tet Offensive, and Last in Their Class, Custer, Pickett, and Goats of West Point. So he's written on history, and he joins us right now for a talk about his new book called Native Americans, Patriotism, Exceptionalism, and the New American Identity. James, Tim, and Ed here, thank you for being on with us.
Hey, guys, how are you doing?
Hey, good.
Well.
So, deputy editor of Rare. So that's a magazine for aficionados of steak. Is that is a steak periodical? I'm sorry. I've been waiting to do that one all morning. It didn't go over as well as I thought.
Oh yeah, well we do like our meat, I must say.
What is Rare?
Rare is a new conservative website. It's part of Cox Media Group, and it was stood up for people. We're trying to appeal to people who the mainstream media have kind of abandoned. Folks who don't trust those kind of outlets and want to get news and opinion from an American point of view, things that they're interested in. And we cover the gamut. It's not just politics, but we do lifestyle and all kinds of things.
So flyover country and people who cling to God and guns and all those other people that the news media
We're trying to get rid of those people, James.
Yeah, that gets treated as the scum of the earth, and really we're the backbone.
You're trying to appeal to those people?
Oh, yeah, the bitter clingers. Hey, I'm from Ohio, so
Yeah. Well,
I may live in Washington, but come on.
Yeah. Hey, give us an overview of your new book called Native Americans.
Well, the book was written because, and given the title, Native Americans, people might think it's about like the American Indians, but really it was about because the Census Bureau started asking people, what's your national origin? Like, where do you come from? They started this back in the 1980s. And increasing numbers of people, instead of putting down, Germany or Ireland or France or Africa or something, they put down America. Like, they're just American, period. And there are 4 states in the country where people who claim to be ethnically American are actually the majority or plurality response. So looking at those data, I thought that's really interesting. Like, who are these people who say that they're the Americans? And I started to do research on that and found out that they're just like everybody else. But they're folks who don't want to buy into the divisions that the government and other people are trying to impose on us, try to make us hyphenated Americans, or break us down into ethnic groups or nationality groups, but just want to find a common core of America. So the book really explores that ideas like the American dream, American exceptionalism, and things like that.
James, this is a very good book. I do highly recommend it to folks. Just a little story. I grew up in the New England area. I was born in the Boston area, grew up in New Hampshire. And the few times girls went out with me, okay, I'm half Italian, half Greek. I always asked them what their nationality, what's your nationality, because, I was half Italian, half Greek, this Irish, that was just kind of the way people identified. And I was always curious as to who, what background a person had. When I came down south and met the woman who would become my wife, she was from Mississippi. I did the same thing. I said, well, what nationality are you? And she said, I'm American. And I said, no, I mean, like, where are your parents from? She said, Mississippi. And I never could, to this day, I can't get a straight answer out of her. She doesn't seem to know. So I always thought that was fascinating that whereas, now, I consider myself fully American. I never called myself Italian American, for example, but that there are people who just say, no, we don't want to talk about 3 generations ago, 4 generations ago, we're American. And that's part of what your book's about.
Oh, absolutely. And, things like having a heritage in your family, things like that are great. Traditions or relatives in the old country or, cookbooks, traditional dishes and all that. That's wonderful. That's part of the tapestry that makes our country great. And if it were just limited to that, like families and traditions and societies and so forth, that's fantastic. But it's when it goes over into politics, when people start drawing lines based on the government taking a stand on this and putting people into categories and handing out benefits and special favors based on those categories, that's when you have a problem. And there are people in this country whose whole identity is based around that, their whole political perspective. The multiculturalists and people like that, where they want to divide people up instead of unite them. And so part of the book is addressing that issue of this great division in our country and the need to come back to a common core of what are American values, what does America mean, and how can we unite to make this country better.
We're talking to James Robbins, who's apparently, according to his bio, very smart gentleman. Holds a Ph.D. and Master of Arts from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, deputy editor of Rare, and the author of the book Native Americans, Patriotism, Exceptionalism, and the New American Identity. James, you had a fascinating story, and I do remember reading about this back several years ago, and just wanting to bring even more clarity to this idea of how identity politics divides us rather than brings us together. And share with our listeners and those who are watching online the story from May 2010, Live Oaks High School in Morgan Hill, California. There was a controversy over the flying of the American flag in that school. Why don't you tell our listeners about that story?
Oh, right. That was the Cinco de Mayo one, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah, because, and, not to cast aspersions on Cinco de Mayo, but it started out as, in this country, more as a beer commercial. But
okay.
It's a local holiday in one of the Mexican states, but because of a promotional thing for Corona some years ago, it's become much more than that in this country as opposed to in Mexico.
And Corona is forever grateful.
Independence Day. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Well, hey, I like Corona too. So,
it's like St. Patty's Day, sort of.
Right.
Well,
just what America really needs is more drinking holidays.
Yes. Right.
But it's come to mean much more, and it's kind of an unofficial, Hispanic Independence Day in this country. And so in that school, some kids actually got in trouble for wearing, the American flag, for having American colors. And
on Cinco de Mayo.
On Cinco de Mayo. And were thrown out of school for the day because they were, inciting or something like that. And so, rather than trying to have a dialogue or talk about how the American flag should unite everybody, it doesn't matter if you're an immigrant from anywhere. The American flag is our flag, not the Mexican flag, not the, Italian flag or any other flag. It's right. The American flag. So rather than use that as a teaching moment to engage the students in talking about Americanism and how great it is to be here, they told the kids who were sporting, American colors to get out and punish them because they're inciting. Come on. Who taught these teachers to hate America so much?
And the answer is?
Say again?
And the answer is?
Yeah.
It's endemic in the culture. It's part of the multiculturalist identity. And the reason is because that particular approach to politics is based on victimology. Everybody's, you're a victim, and so you deserve something. Something happened to you in the past, and so you get compensation now or something like that. So if you're going to have victims, you need a victimizer. And the victimizer has always been America. The country of slavery, Jim Crow, imperialism, the 1%, choose your bad guy. But basically it all gets down to saying bad things about America and, in my opinion, misrepresenting what this country is all about in service of this other agenda.
Well, let me ask you this, though. it seems that obviously our country has done some bad things. I mean, I think every fair-minded American will at least assent to that. Yeah, slavery and some terrible things have been done in America by Americans. But these multiculturalists, rather than saying, well, every country has its dark, secrets and its evil deeds, because we're talking about nations created by human beings after all, and we all have the same thing. But rather than saying, yes, America's done some bad things, but is still a great nation, and here's why, multiculturalists instead say, yeah, America has done bad things, therefore is an evil entity. And I want to know what drives that. What drives that impulse to, instead of saying yes, bad, but they say yes, bad, therefore we need to splinter off into our own groups. What is the motivation to hating America so much?
I really don't know. It's hard to say. Some people, just from birth, they've been told how bad things are, or they feel guilty about something. Maybe people who are prosperous who feel guilty about that or have been told they don't deserve it. I really don't know why it's become the fashion to be so down on this country. And it's not necessarily a new thing. There have always been folks who've been down on the country. But it seems that these days it's just inescapable. It's almost like the default setting that America's bad, and if you want to say good things about the country, you're immediately going to start an argument with people who say, oh, yeah, but what about X?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, everybody knows there have been bad things in our history, but that doesn't need to define us as a people. It certainly doesn't define my life.
I'd say where you want to move to. All right, show me where on the globe you can have it better.
Right.
And that's where you need to pack up and go to, right there, because you can always nitpick, and you don't necessarily have to nitpick, as you said earlier, Ed. There are in any civilization, in any country, in any that's been around for any length of time, you're going to find things that have been done,
right?
That are the American, but the left wing multicultural view of America, I think, is represented. They have a problem with capitalism, because it's a form of imperialism. It's related to, right. White supremacy, or this is their view,
right.
Right. And so colonialization, those kinds of things, and so they use that to put down the whole ideal or whole concept of America. I get you get this sometimes. How can America claim to have been the founding fathers were good men when they were slave owners, or they allowed slaves?
Yeah.
There's no context for the time period in which they lived, or the fact that slavery had been around since the beginning of the world. You know what I'm saying? The fact that the Constitution that the founders gave us ultimately led to the freedom of the slaves. You know what I'm saying? That there was a divide in the country at the time.
Right.
Whether, this is good or something that should be allowed. We had a civil war over it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just easy to throw out things like I just said, and that's supposed to end the argument.
Right.
George Washington had slaves, therefore, we shouldn't have a town named after him, right, or something like that.
Or a holiday.
So what I'm saying, you can always find something like that, to argue against America. And I think some of it, James, not to take over the interview and interview myself here, but
well, it's your show.
But well, yeah, Ed and I. But anyway, another thing is, a lot of these people are Christian haters. They really are. They're American haters because they hate. They're Christian haters. If you listen to them, they don't. They don't want to talk about the Christian heritage of America. They want to eradicate it. They want to revise history, and so I guess you call them God haters. And so they hate anything that in America.
There's not too much they don't hate. That's you get the impression that they just. I don't know. I don't want to mischaracterize
They're
them.
communists, they're secularists, they're leftists, they're multiculturalists, and so they want to promote things that are anti-American traditionalism. I want to ask you.